On July 21st, 2016, a user on 4chan posted on the moo/message board about a mysterious disc in an Oxfam charity shop he found. The CD had the name Death Metal by Panchiko. At the time, he hadn't seen something like this before. He searched up on Google, nothing. And then he looked up the full name on Google, nothing again. But what he didn't know is as soon as he would post on that message board, he would spark a train of people wanting to find this album and the creators of this band. After the OP posted this, he would later be asked for some audio from the album, and the audio recovered was corrupted. Now, when I tried to do research on the early days of the search, there really was no early days of the search. This left me extremely confused considering this is a piece of lost media and there was little to no search for it. So I did a little bit more digging and I joined the Panchiko Discord server. And I asked around and I ended up to one of the first leaders of the original search, ZOD, and I asked him for a statement.
Well, by the time I found out about the album, any attempts at a search had already been given up on. I'd say I first heard it in 2018, if I can remember, but I really only got interested in it in 2019, and all I could find were old Reddit threads that were all dead ends. There wasn't as much of a search as there was individual people asking and looking around. The main search party came to be when I made a Discord and people searching for the album started converging with each other. Before that, there weren't really any sort of real search, or at least not an organized one. There were people like Sticky, who owns the Dismiss Yourself label, who attempted to gather information early on, 2017 I think, but he also ran into a dead end. It was an internet cult album that was known in specific niches only, so the people who wanted to find it were all scattered around the web, so the search was non-existent back then.
With that clarification out of the way, I finally understood that the search only really began in 2019, which adds another interesting layer to this whole search. Usually with lost media, a search team is formed so they can get answers, not get answers, or usually find what they're looking for. So with Zod knowing this, there wasn't much of a search. He started the Panchiko Discord server to try to get clues, but little to nothing was found. No trace of this EP's existence past the 4chan post and maybe the Reddit. They tried contacting the Oxfam shop, but in the end, it was fruitless. But then someone on Discord figured out that the gift aid ID was actually something they could use. By using the last 5 numbers at the end, they were able to find the original Oxfam shop it was located in. The original location of this EP was in Nottingham, England, so the search moved over there. The search team tried contacting every Owain in the area, and to avail, it worked. They messaged the Owain of Panchiko on a defunct Facebook page, and he actually responded, and he gave insight on the EP, confirming to a lot of people that the disc drop wasn't intentional, and sadly, he didn't have the original copy. But he would try to get into contact with the original band members to see if they did have one. With the members of the band giving statements and Andy of Panchiko joining the Discord, he gave insight as to why the band broke up. And it wasn't with a boom, but more with a whimper. There was no members leaving over creative differences, it was just life getting in the way. They all either left for college, other creative projects, or the military, and they revealed that they had another EP they hadn't released yet, which was Kicking Cars. With the band being reformed and re-established, they announced that they were trying to remaster death metal, but they didn't have a copy. But they eventually found one, and then they released death metal on Bandcamp, and then it eventually made its way to Spotify. Now, I feel like I'm doing this story a disservice, but it's just been told so many times that most of you probably wouldn't just want me to retell the story and that being the video. But the thing I wanted to talk about in this video is Panchiko a hoax? Now, I feel like this question has been thrown to the wayside along with the band reforming and touring, and some of the fans are, let's be honest, a little odd.
I don't know what it means, but I like it.
Yeah! Now, originally when the band did come out and say they were real and started touring, most if not all questions died. Before anyone comments, I like their music. I think it's really good. Even with them definitely being real, as they've performed multiple times live and continuing to perform, I'm not really skeptical of them, but instead more so re-examining the quote-unquote theories of them being a hoax. The term industry plant is something I've seen thrown around a couple times. What is an industry plant? To define the term, it's a musician who became popular through nepotism, inheritance, wealth, or their connections in the music industry rather than their own merits. And while I'd say there are clear cases of this from the past 4 years, an example I would like to use is back from 2021, a band called the Tramp Stamps. They were an alt-rock band, and also around that time is when being alt was like a popular thing. They ended up having like a lot of fishy things happening with them, like them having a merch store right from the get-go. One of them eventually got caught that they were working for the music industry at one point, so it was just kind of assumed that they were having a little bit of help from some sort of connections.
Tramp Stamps had worked with Dr. Luke, a record producer that has a long history of serious allegations against him, including R&SA. Obviously, people weren't happy with this because the image of Tramp Stamps was fuck the patriarchy, we are feminists, fuck you, to then just completely going against what they stand for, all to have a quote-unquote hit record that killed the band before they ever saw actual success.
Also, another thing that was kind of funny looking back, they stopped making music after this happened. I bring the merch store thing up because Panchiko had a merch store through Bandcamp, and this seems to be a point of contention.
Finally, and arguably the easiest one to understand, is that since the album's discovery, it's made its way onto Spotify and has a physical release through Bandcamp, including branded t-shirts.
Them doing this immediately after they were rediscovered is flat out wrong. It took a couple months to start out with. It was also done to promote the re-release of death metal. This again could all be a big coincidence. It could also just be them saving up funds to start touring, considering they did a full US tour like 2 years later. But that leaves Andy of Panchiko. He did technically have a music career, being a mixer and masterer, and he also restored Kicking Cars and death metal. He was also in a couple of previous bands, so he could technically have some connections to pull strings if he had any. Well, no, since it took a search team to form for about 3 years. Then in a year they were able to find any type of lead on this album, and then it took a couple months to get any type of result with this search. So in all honesty, I don't think they're an industry plant, because why wait 4 years to release your album? Maybe to build up hype, but the hype was niche at best and no hype at worst. This to me sounds like nothing more than what the band claims to say. They are genuine. Unless...
1 2 1 2 1 2.
I can't really fit this into either section, I'm just gonna put it here. Panchiko's album cover has an image of an anime girl from Mitna no Bokura, a manga from the late 90s. This fits the band's Japanese-inspired aesthetic, like their name being a misspell of pachinko, and with one of the songs on the EP, Laputa, being a reference to Castle in the Sky, a Ghibli movie from the 80s. The whole album has a multitude of references from like other video games or books. For example, the Don't Play the Track sample from death metal being from Burning Rangers.
This is a game CD for Sega Saturn system. Track 1 contains game data, so please don't play the track with a regular CD player. It might damage your audio system.
And The Eyes of Ibad being a reference from Dune.
Long exposure to spice has given the tribe their characteristic blue eyes, the eyes of Ibad.
Looking at the manga, it ran from 1997 to 2000, and it was localized in English at an unknown time. This really has me questioning, there's no way they got a manga from Japan, which at the time was extremely hard to get and probably expensive to import, right? Well, no, because Mitna no Bokura ran from 97 to 2000, so it also aligns with the time frame the album was made, but it also had a Spanish release, so there's that. I couldn't find when the Spanish version was localized, so I'm kind of shooting in the dark. Same with the English, but this could mean they could have found a version of this manga in a bookstore and saw it, and Owain, being a massive weeaboo at the time, would have picked it up and used the panel as the album cover. Or they did import one from Japan, which would have been extremely expensive and kind of unlikely considering these are broke high school kids. But from this one article I was able to find, it says you can see a text bubble which is of the Japanese version, so I can't really say there's a definite definite answer for this. The only thing I could say is confirmed is the manga's run date lining up with the EP's creation, but who knows when this manga was localized, so it's hard to say whether or not this is legit. So in post, I was doing some final research and apparently none of these were correct. I decided to go on the Panchiko wiki and there was an answer. Apparently Andy found a nice image and put this as the EP cover. They probably searched anime or anime girl on whatever search engine, Bing or whatever. Either way, that puts an end to that mystery. The possibility of this being a alternate reality game or ARG is plausible. The way it was posted on 4chan and the way there was a search team that was looking for it to find it, and the fact that they did find them 4 years later.
There was a period where the server dwindled in activity as morale got lower, but I guess what kept us going is the sort of group aspect of it working together and helping each other out. Sounds corny as hell, but there's a reason why we were the only people who succeeded at finding the band, and it's because we were people that met with the common interest to find the band members. Teamwork makes the dream work or whatever.
So what do we have here? A post on 4chan with information about basic information about the album, stuff like the Oxfam sticker and gift at 8ID being relatively easy to replicate, and coincidentally, no last name printed on the back giving credit to its original members, just the first names. And the fact that we never saw the actual CD in the 4chan post, it's even more interesting with the OP saying this isn't an ARG and more specifically viral marketing bullshit. So do we take his word? He did provide the rotted files, but he also didn't show what the CD looked like, so there's that. If you read the comments under that post, even at the time, it was mixed opinions, but interesting enough, people were arguing if the rot was real or not. But in the end, this went nowhere and the mystery died until it was uploaded on YouTube in 2017. Now, it's plausible to say that it could have been an ARG this whole time. This does have the making to be an ARG, be like Halo 2's campaign to hype up the game, but that was more on the nose, or like the Errata's ARG. Another more recent thing that I would like to bring up in this search is the search for Digital Girl, Lost in the Code, a song that was claimed to be lost. This topic deserves a video on its own, but Digital Girl is a song from emails. The story went as someone posting a snippet of a song onto What's That Song and a search team being formed. Then a user on Reddit posted a picture of the CD containing a mention of emails. The song was not on the CD, but it sounded similar. Then after about an hour, another user on Reddit claimed they found more of emails' music on Soulseek. And with this being a little more suspicious, with some more snooping around on the profile, it showed they hadn't been active for 5 years. This then made people in the search team start wondering if this was a hoax, and it turned out it was things like the date given by the What's That Songs user changing 3 times, along with the emails YouTube being created with no other presence online and releasing all of the music including Lost in the Code or Digital Girl. Then after court of public opinion was that Digital Girl was a hoax, and the OP of the original What's That Song post admitted it was all fabricated.
My motive behind faking the song? Well, I mean, the song itself isn't fake. If you're talking about the search, there was like an argument that broke out, and it was like, I think it was over, everyone knows that, it was this big argument, and then it's like, half people saying it's like, it could be faked, it could be a fake song, like something like this isn't impossible to fake. And then this whole argument started, and basically someone just said, you know, if you could fake a Lost Wave song so easily, why don't you do it then, or whatever. And I said, well, maybe I will. And that's kind of where we are now. Like, it was just kind of as a test.
Something I want to point out is the way the band themselves talks in interviews. The way Owain, the lead singer of Panchiko, talks about the internet just proves to me that the whole band isn't an ARG. Another thing that I've seen floating around is that Owain, the lead singer, sounds the same as he did 20 years ago. Now, I don't know about you, but obviously people's voice changes over time, and there is a difference here. All they wanted live versus the actual recording.
She just watches TV. Slowly starts to vomit. It's all he ever wanted to feel. Like they wanted, and it's all they ever needed to feel. Undefeated.
Maybe it's the mic setting or the fact that there's an echo, but regardless, he does sound different, very subtly, or if not plain out in the open, but it's there. His voice sounds more raspy and a little aged. It would make sense. It is 20 to 19 years later since he last performed, and it's only natural his voice would have aged. Something else that's stated is it just being randomly found in a thrift store. Now, there's no statistics for lost media being found in a thrift store, so I can't really say this is true, but taking other people's accounts into question, it's definitely possible. Like lost films being found in thrift stores, or in the case of lost/forgotten albums, it's definitely possible. It's definitely possible for forgotten media and lost media to be found or rediscovered, like in the case with ulterior motives. Another thing that is interesting is that the original person that posted the EP back in 2016 posted the files unlabeled and just dumped them onto a file sharing site. But even looking at all the evidence here, it could just be a coincidence. Even if it was an ARG, I don't think the band would ever say that it was. For example, Wilbur Soot, the script was written before he was outed, so I don't think it's the best example I should have used, but it's an example. He has acknowledged that he has an ARG, but has not given any clues to what wasn't found because it would ruin the point of the ARG. Or in the same instance with the Errata's ARG, with DJ Roswell saying it's fake. Either way, the outcome more or less came out with everything being found. If it is an ARG or Industry Planet or luck or whatever conclusion it is, we can at least agree the music is really good and pushes the shoegaze genre forward.
I think many of them are merely uninformed and as such don't hold anything against them. They just need to be educated on it. As for those that have seen the heaps of evidence, yet continue to propagate baseless hoax theories, they can suck it.